Get them fired up and get them to the staging lanes, baby, because 8th Mile Apparel is now carrying Glowing Bracket Racing merch. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and much more can be yours today by visiting 8thmileapparel.com. We appreciate each and every one of you guys supporting the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube and Facebook pages.
What's up, everybody? It is episode 167 of the Glowing Bracket Racing Live podcast, coming at you live on YouTube and Facebook, and of course comes out later on every podcast platform known to man on Fridays, though. So if you want to join us live, you need to be here right now at this particular time, 5 Eastern, 4 Central Time, August 27th, 2024. Don't know if I said that yet today. We got to thank the people who always bring this to you for free every single week. TSR Racing Products for all those transmission parts and accessories. BRG 3D printed parts for everything you can't find elsewhere or any custom parts you need. Brian Garrett, your man. BRG 3D printed parts. Syntex printing out there in Temple, Texas. Stickers, shirts, brochures, anything you need for your business, anything you need for your race car. Greg Duffield over there at Syntex Printing will get that all printed up for you and sent out to you, make you look professional for the big go if you plan on going there this week. Driven Racing Oil, you need that in your race car. GBR 10, get yourself 10% off, and if you need to clean it up, shine it up, get you some of that speed wax, get you some of that speed clean, get you some transmission fluid, rear end oil, oil for the truck that you tow with, but use the code GBR10, get yourself 10% off your order all the time. $99 or more gets shipped free to your door. Proform Parts, they're the ones giving you all these free parts. Lance Price was the winner of the AN wrench set last month. He just said that he got those today. Pictures will be coming up tomorrow for those of y'all that don't believe me. But those of y'all that do, you need to be a subscriber on our YouTube channel, the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube channel. It is 100% free to subscribe. Click that little subscribe button down below this video right now. We're giving away an electric water pump this month. We'll be giving away parts from Proform Parts the entire rest of this year. So you definitely need to be subscribed to the Glowing Bracket Racing YouTube channel to become a part of the community. Again, it's free. So if you want some free parts, that's all you got to do. Click that subscribe button and thank Proform Parts whenever you get the opportunity. Crew Chief Pro Software, get that dial-in figured out. If you don't know what's going on, then Don Higgins will get you figured out with that crewchiefpro.com. And maybe a little weather data in there too, but he'll get that prediction in order, get you knowing what you're going to run for the next round. If you want some of this GBR merch, this stuff me and George are always wearing over here, you need to visit 8thmileapparel.com. Get your GBR hats, hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. We got more and more stuff showing up there at all times. I think that pretty much covers it, George. I said subscribe about 700 times. They need to know.
I'm going to say it one more time. Subscribe. Hit that bell notification. That way you don't miss another episode of GBR. It's only been 167 of them on there now. So if you want to go back and watch a few, they're all on YouTube. So have fun. But Casey, man, it's been an interesting weekend so far. Had to go to old doctor. That wasn't no fun. And now I got to get ready to go out to Ennis for Flicker Promotions and watch the Texan Lasso go down there with Ryan Gleghorn and Brittany Ezel and Johnny Ezel throwing a good show there. So look forward to seeing everybody show up to that, man. And good luck to everybody out there. Turn on some wind lights. You know how that goes, Casey.
That's right. You forgot Madison, man. I can't believe it.
I think I said
unbelievable.
I think you got to clear out your ears, man. I'm telling you. I think I said Madison. And if I didn't, I'm sorry.
We'll see.
Yeah, man.
No, man, we got somebody on here that I just want to get straight to, man, because somebody we met actually at PRI.
No joke about it, Casey. And it's getting mighty cold in my room. I don't know what's going on around your house, man, but all of a sudden, it's like the AC went down another couple notches. We got Mr. Cool in the building. What's going on, Zach?
Hey guys, well, first off, say appreciate you guys having me on the show. Feel honored to be able to come on and talk to you guys a little bit about racing and all the things about it.
Hey man, I'm glad you had a chance to get on here, and thanks for making time in your schedule to come join us, man. We know you're in the shop. You're probably getting ready to go back to KilKare. I'm telling you, Casey, I think I told Zach this the other day. They need to rename the track to Mr. Cool Dragway. I know it sound, but well, I ain't gonna say that. KilKare might get mad at me, but as much as he's won at this track, maybe a name change is in order, you know. But Zach, we're gonna get right into the show. Every single guest that we have gets asked the same question, and that question is, how did you get into bracket racing?
So my granddad, he's right over there. You're right. We're in the shop at KilKare at the 50K that we ended up being fortunate enough to win. Going in the second round against Rocky Van Note, I noticed a tick in my motor. It went down and lost the lifter is what it ended up being. But yeah, he's my granddad, man. He's the one who got me going, and you know, to this day, he was there for the first one, and hopefully he can be there for the last one. But he's if it wasn't for him and my uncle, man, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. There's 7 of us total that race, including his brother, my cousins, my uncle. But yeah, we just always done it as a family sport, and he started me 20 years ago when I was 7 years old at Gleason Raceway Park, that's owned by the Northrop family now. So yeah, that's kind of where I cut my teeth in.
Yeah, I heard that, man.
Yeah, man. So that shop, it looks like it's pretty big up in there, but it seems like it's probably pretty full then if you got 7 guys in there racing at it.
Oh god, yeah. I was wanting to do like a pan around of what it looked like, but man, I'm kind of embarrassed what it looks like right now. I just had me and my wife just had our first child, and we've had a lot of stuff going on in our family business of doing pest control. So we're still pretty steady in the race shop at night, but not like we normally are. But yeah, the shop's pretty good. It's pretty good size. It's 60 by 100. And then I've got an apartment that me and my wife live in that's 1,500 square foot inside of it.
Sounds like
So you're living the dream, man.
That's what I said. Sounds like the dream.
Yeah, my wife's wanting to move out, but man, being able to walk out and just, you know, work on stuff whenever you get a free second's really nice.
Heard that.
I understand that, man. But I just want to get right into talking about this big money stuff you've been doing, because obviously everybody's been living under a rock if they haven't heard the name Zac Fulcher, especially if they're watching anything at KilKare, because last year, of course, you won and runnered up to yourself in the Cavalier at this race that you also won this year in the Dragster. So I just kind of wanted to start off by talking about, you know, I don't know how long you've been big money racing specifically, but big money racing versus local racing. At what point did you finally decide to try your hand at going the big money, this mega money stuff that we have available to us now?
So it's all about it's expensive to do it, right? You know, the entry fees, you know, you're going to spend couple $1,000, especially if you double every time you leave the driveway. It takes $1,000, you know, to pretty much get the rig out and go anywhere with it by the time you put diesel and fill it up with fuel and that kind of stuff. So funding was a big part of it. I was always competitive locally, and we always raced to the extent that we could. But I've been traveling around big money racing. This is the 4th year. And obviously with, you know, support from Mr. Cool, that's kind of how that all started. And even to this day, if I didn't have their support and, you know, all the companies that I have standing behind me now, none of it would be possible. In 2020, I won the track championship at Beacon Dragway, which is in Paducah. That's our home track. And I was really wanting to figure out a way to, you know, to go to these big money bracket races. You know, I always, in my interviews, I always bring up I'm living my 12-year-old dream. And that's still, I mean, there's nothing more true. Me and my uncle were talking, you know, we need to find a way, I think, you know, we have a chance at being competitive at it, but we've got to find financial backing. So in the winter of 2020, I started putting together a proposal because there was this company in town that was growing rapidly. And they were 6 years old at the time. They didn't have anything motorsports, that they were supporting. So I was able to. We were already set up as a dealer, so I was able to get my foot in the door straight to the owner. I sent him a picture that Cade Varner did for me of a dragster. I did a black one, a blue one, and an orange one, and had Mr. Cool on it. And I just sent him a text message to the owner. I just sent him a picture of it, and he said, "Cool, how much?" And I said, 20 minutes of your time. And he said, "Okay, when do you want the meeting?" And then it's kind of, the rest is kind of fell into place from there. We talked numbers and stats of the races. I got a hold of people like Britt and Galen. I got a hold of Kyle and Peter. I got a hold of Randy, and they kind of gave me some numbers that I could approach them with to go to them and make it make sense for them to financially make the investment. So then that opened up the opportunity to be able to finally go after these things and to attend these kind of races. It's funny that you look back and how things change in life. You're talking about naming it Mr. KilKare. Gary and Troy Williams in the winter circle, they're like, we're going to call this place Zac Care. And in the beginning, me and my buddy Ryan Armour, we took off. I had an orange and silver S10. We took off, and he turned on like one or two wind lights. I didn't turn on a single wind light for a loose rocker event. And I told him then, I was like, I'm never coming back to this track. And it was at KilKare. I said, I'm never coming back. So then I ended up coming back after I got the sponsorship and went to Jake Hodges' Working Man. Sorry about that. Went to Jake Hodges' Working Man 10 gram. And I had like 19 losses and maybe 2 win lights. And then it was like, and that was rolling into in 2021, I ended up running up there at a TB race, of course. But that's like when the script kind of flipped. But yeah, up until that time, I was beating my head every time I pulled in there.
Ultimately, man, you gotta keep going, because ultimately my dad always called it race your way out of it all the time. You got to race your way out of the slump, because you can't win any rounds if you don't show up. So if you go out and you lose a bunch and you never show back up, well, guess what? You're always a loser.
Right. True statement. Hey, I like how you mentioned how you went about calling out to Peter Biondo and Great American Bracket Races teams and kind of gathering data, even SFG, even gathering data of what viewership is being presented to the people who are actually watching the live streams. And that's actually a really smart way to go about looking for a sponsorship. I hope you guys heard that. That was pretty smart. So, but yeah, man, one question I had for you coming, just kind of last week, we talked about local racing, and if you missed episode 166, guys, head back in there and watch it. But we talked about local racing, how much tougher it's getting, even on the local levels, man. Give me your thought process, or maybe even your strategy going into a local race as opposed to a big money race. Are you a little different, or are you about the same when you're heading into the race?
So that depends on the car. What car am I driving? What speed? If I'm in a dragster at a local event, and typically the tracks around here are door car heavy. Well, when you got a 30 or 40 mile per hour speed difference, you're not going to judge that. So I have a tendency to hold quite a bit doing that. But if I'm in my Cavalier or something, I'm way more honest. Just because I feel like people were intimidated by dragsters around here, maybe a little bit. But I got to have something on my side to give me something at the finish line to be able to see. I get picked on a lot for holding so much at local when I'm driving a dragster, but it's just that I feel like that's my advantage on trying to get in that gap at that window at the end, because typically everybody can lay down great packages, and like you're saying, it's getting so much tougher around here. But if they're not, throwing that back at you, and you have that 20 that you can get in at the finish line, and you feel like you can do it comfortably, then that's what I'm going to take advantage of.
Yeah, see, I always, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I always thought you were from Texas. But you saying that your home track's Beacon, I guess you were you're about 10 years younger than me. So I was out of there and living somewhere else by the time you got into the big cars, I guess, which is why, because I always thought your last name sounded familiar. Because you know what? Rick Harless and them, I'm sure.
My granddad was just on the phone with Rick. His car was in here last
Yeah.
week. We were welding up some wheelie bars for the wagon because he was ripping the license plate off of it.
How about that for a nice race car?
Oh yeah,
Tell
yeah.
him.
He let me drive it in Vegas in 23, and that's the car I was able to get down to 10 in the million,
Right.
and that thing is sweet.
Oh man.
Yes, it's extremely nice. I remember whenever he first got that car, because that's probably the longest Ricky's ever owned a race car ever and not sold it.
Yeah.
And I remember it might have been the first ever summer door car shootout at Luke's deal. And I remember asking him, and I said, Rick, how much would it take to buy this car? And he said, I don't think I'm going to get rid of that. And I said, yeah, well, I'll believe that whenever I see it. And sure enough, he still has it. But I mean, that's probably one of the nicest wagons around. And if anybody saw it, I think every single one of them would agree with me.
He just redone the whole interior, so it's even sweeter. Yeah,
But
awesome.
So going back on what you were just kind of talking about, obviously winning and running up that 50K at the TB race to yourself, and then again winning in the dragster this year. How do you approach rounds differently? You kind of got into it already, and you're right. I agree with you. In the Midwest, I do feel like people are more intimidated by dragsters out there. And I also think a lot of people package race out there a lot more versus out here in the Southeast where I'm at now. It was a total change of scenery where everyone out here, like, you're hard pressed to find anybody at package races. Out here, they think you're crazy if you don't hold at least 2 or 3 every single run.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do you? In that scenario, I would probably try and just lay down a good lap.
Yep.
As long as I'm feeling confident up front and stuff. I've always, I like to go against the grain. I've always been hard headed, I guess. So, if everybody else is doing it, I'm probably going the opposite way.
Right.
And just try to figure out.
Do you know Jim Simmons?
The name sounds familiar, but no, I don't know him.
Oh, well, if you know Rick, I'm sure Jim doesn't race as much anymore. He's like 76 maybe now. He's not that old. Don't hurt his feelings.
Sorry, Jim.
Watching this shit.
Sorry.
But no, I want to say he's like 76 or 5 or something like that. But anyway, he's been racing since he was 15 years old. In fact, Dad told me the other day, he claims he's quitting again. I said, yeah, I've heard that before. I've heard that for the last 15, 20 years. That's how I have it. You can't see it over here, but there's a full-size practice tree on this wall over here. And that Jim gave that to me when he quit the 3rd time or whatever. But anyway, he used to always tell me that, and I've told George this a million times, talking about the holding numbers versus package racing and stuff. He always said, no matter what you do, never play their game, because the reason it's called their game is because they're better at it than you are. So I guess, what kind of advice do you have to people who, obviously you need to learn to drive certain ways in certain scenarios, because if you're ever in a scenario where you don't know what you're going to run, you can't just throw a number out there and run it to the scoreboard and hope for the best. Like, that's just not going to work out anymore. It's not the 90s anymore. But to an extent, do you think there are certain people that are, like, no one specifically, but do you think there are people out there that are trying to do things that they're simply not yet capable of? Not that they'll never be, but they're trying to drive over their heads at certain times when they would be better off doing it a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. But if you never take that jump, you're never going to figure it out. So I don't ever want anybody to feel like they're not capable of it, or because I feel like everybody's capable of anything if you put your mind to it and you try hard enough. And there's not one right answer, right? There's multiple ways to manipulate the run to make it look funny. Sorry, I had a phone call. There's multiple ways to manipulate the run to make it look funny. But I feel like, not saying that I'm, the greatest that's out there or anything like that, but I just think the best racers are diversified and if you think about an arsenal of weapons, they have different things that they can implement at different times as needed. Like, if I know a certain person drives this way, I'm going to race this way. I'm going to make it look funny to them. Or if I know that they're going to spray it at the end, then I'm going to hold it and then drop them off and hope they break out. It all depends on your surroundings and who you're pairing up against.
Yep.
Well, it's more
But there's definitely people who overdrive, right? And make it harder than it has to be. But I think once they do it long enough, they'll finally figure out that what they're trying to accomplish. Because it's hard to take inches, and change it. Because every time you change your driving style, you're changing on yourself, right? So now you gotta remember and implement and be disciplined in what you're trying to do.
So it's more of a, you think nowadays it's more of a strategy game versus I mean, obviously there's got to be skill in everything. You got to be able to do what you're trying to do. But do you think that strategy is equally at least as important as just the talent? Like back in the day, for example, in the, Midwest area, Scotty Richardson, for example, he was just eons ahead of everybody in the 90s. Like he was doing stuff no one had ever seen before because he had the skill level that no one else had. Do you think that, well, I guess kind of a two-part question. Do you think there's anybody who's that far beyond, or will there ever be anybody that's that far beyond everybody else's skill set nowadays? Or do you think that there's people obviously that are like maybe 25% better, but they're not like 5 times as good as the average guy anymore?
So I would say, which condolences go out to the Richardson family, as they're laying him to rest today. But obviously, they're the greatest to ever do it, and it's funny that we're talking about it. But I had a talk with Edmund, at Bowling Green one time, and I was talking about getting my head kicked in, and he was talking about he ended up losing a round, and he was talking about losing too. I was like, man, what was it back? What was it like back in the day? He's like, well, he's like, you're a pretty good driver. He said, but think about, if everybody else's stuff was varying so much and you had better equipment and you understood the game better, how much more would you win? And so now, fast forward to now, and they had that knowledge, obviously, right? That's, the proof's in the pudding. They have multitudes of wins. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Edmund's shop, but he has literal industrial shelving and probably 4 tiers full of Wallies and trophies that they've racked up over the years. I mean, it's just insane to see. But, the technology got better and everybody's stuff is run pretty good. I mean, there's stuff now, like you were saying, package racing, that everybody was still trying to package race them, but they might miss it by 6 or 8 hundredths, to where now you let go and floorboard it and you're probably going to put it pretty close to dead on. So I think that, that has changed the way that we race. Obviously, I never even got to live that part because I was, able to come up in good equipment and stuff like that. But to say the closest person to me is like probably that heater, when Jeff Serra went on his heater, man, he was, that was unreal to watch. I don't know how many wins he had in that, 2-3 year stretch, but it was pretty phenomenal to see.
It was, I think it was Kenny Underwood. Then the next year was, I want to say Ezel, then Sarah, and then Hunter Patton. But we haven't seen anything since that really of that kind of a role of just constantly winning every single thing. And that's kind of my point is I think everybody else has become good enough and they have learned that if they want to be good at something, then they need to, first of all, go do it. There's the opportunity for everybody to go do it now as far as the quantity of races and in all various areas of the country where it's not secluded to one area like it always used to be. So now everybody kind of has the opportunity where they don't have to necessarily travel so far. TB bringing everything to the Midwest, I think really helped out a lot. I'm sure you love that, just not having to drive all the way across the world anymore. But ultimately, I just feel like there's not as large of a separation anymore. There are guys that, again, I still think that if big money racing is around long enough, I think Corey Galletti will eventually go down as the best to ever do it. But I don't know if it'll last another 35 years. But he's also the epitome of making five times as many laps as everybody else every single year. And every time you do something, you're learning. And the faster you can get to, say, 10,000 laps, the faster you can be a professional at it. And Corey Galetti's probably made 10,000 laps already.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's able to stay on the road, and like anything, the more you practice it and the more you sharpen your tools, the better you're going to be at it. But yeah, Corey's, I mean, he's another one right there. He, puts on a performance, and I mean, his driving capabilities they're second to none.
I don't know how many times I've said this either, but a lot of what you've mentioned, Zach, sounds like golf. Okay. If you don't have so many different tricks in your bag while you play golf, you will lose. It will beat you to death. So it's kind of that what you just said. You get stuck under a tree if you can't get off from under it in a golf game. Well, it's the same thing on a racetrack if you ask me. If you're trying to make it look different, I'm kind of more than one way to skin a cat out here. And I think that gets a lot of people in trouble, either for the good or the bad. When you get it on your end for making it look different, but then you give it away making it look different too, if you know what I mean there. So,
but and that's you hear luck is when what do they say, when preparation meets opportunity, or when opportunity meets preparation. I was preparing for the opportunity, the whole time. I was doing that, learning that different, because I was watching the stuff that Luke would put out and the different driving style videos that he would. Well, I would go and take it to my local track and implement it and just try and learn. Well, then, not even knowing anything about a sponsorship was coming, but just practicing that, just having, if the opportunity ever came, maybe it'll all fall into place. And I'm just lucky enough that's my story, and that's how that happened for me. But I definitely think having, whether it's spot dropping or dialed spray or holding or whatever, that. And like I said, there's not one right answer, and there's not one routine that, you got to be so open-minded going into these rounds that it can change by the round. You can only race one round at a time. And, like I said, each driver, the more you're able to study these drivers, whether it's YouTube on Motor Mania, or just watching them on the track in person, you start to learn people's driving styles and what they're capable and what they're not capable of. So you can kind of eliminate what you think you're going to see throughout that run. And it's crazy that, you got to put that much thought into it. But that's what makes the game fun, right? It's poker on wheels. You're trying to call each other's bluff.
To your point, though, got some more coming back. After these messages here, we got more with Zac Fulcher. I got a question I'm going to ask it when we come back out of the commercial break, though. Don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button, especially on that YouTube side, guys, as giveaways are coming. So make sure you're prepared for that. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick-release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top-selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765-729-1177.
Innovation never sleeps at Proform, and we're making our popular Black Race Series carburetors even better by adding new features that will set them apart from the competition. Some of the newest features include a newly designed main body with contoured Venturas for better airflow, and a new inside and outside two-step down leg boosters for increased atomization and better throttle response. Also, newly designed fuel bowls with increased internal baffling for better fuel control and the lower fuel ramp for reduced turbulence. There are also some new upgrades to point out. The fuel bowls now both include nitrofill floats, and the throttle base plate now has slab shafts for better airflow. These new features, combined with a fully adjustable high-flow main body with screw-in air bleeds, billet metering blocks, high-performance billet throttle base plate, and aluminum fuel bowls with sight glass windows, makes for a great street strip carburetor that packs a punch.
All right. Welcome back. I know you just saw that giveaway. That water pump was right there. It's right there for you to grab it. All you got to do is subscribe. Hit that button. Hit that button. It doesn't take nothing but look at that. I changed the scene. That's how long that takes. Okay. So I just tapped that button and you were in there. So this show can't be possible without our good partners, Driven Racing Oil, Proform Parts, got Ken Jones Performance on board, Syntex Printing, Crew Chief Pro, Team 14 Motorsports, BRG Motorsports, 3D printed parts, TSR Racing Products. You guys at 8th Mile Apparel. If you need any GBR merch, just head on over to 8th Mile Apparel, and they'll get you squared up. There's also another sponsor, those guys at Your Ad Here. That's those good old boys at Going Bracket Racing, Casey and George. Man, they do a heck of a job taking care of their marketing partners. And if you'd like to become a marketing partner, just get in contact with us, Going Bracket Racing at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, and we would love to work with you. So I remembered that question though, Zach, that I was going to ask you. Coming, you've been in so many finals that I can remember myself, especially on the big money scene here as of late. And this is something that I feel like our community here at GBR, we don't quite all understand what happens during the split talk. So I figured it's a good time to ask, number one, how do you approach it, or how should they be approached? And then number two, how much is too much to cut off the top on those big numbers?
So it depends on the purse and what we're racing for, of course, and then how it's structured throughout the race. But I really don't like to think about the money side of it. I do, but I don't. It's in the back of your head. And of course, you want to be the one that comes out on top. But the way that I go into it is just, make sure that it's fair, and then I'm pretty much, whatever everybody else wants to do, I'm good with. I haven't had anybody throw no split, at me yet, but I don't know how my feelings would be at that. But yeah, it just depends, on the payout and that kind of stuff, and make sure that it's fair. Like this last one at TB, I think going into it, it was 7. Sorry, I'm having to fix my tape. I'm using a fuel log and a scoop to hold my camera up, so bear with me. Anyways.
Yeah, race car driver.
Yeah. And it's falling again. Anyways, I think it was $700 to lose at 12. I might be wrong, but the way that we restructured it, it was $1,500, which it was way better there. Right. And then, but I most of the time, like I said, as long as I seem like it's fair to everybody and all that, I'm not one to balk or like that. I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Got you. I got a comment out here from Drag Racer 4809. He's saying that Mr. Cool unit made this summer a whole lot more bearable. He must have got him a unit in his trailer.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm actually starting Monday. I haven't released it yet, but I'll drop it here. We're gonna do a dealer special, just kind of a thank you to everybody for the month of September. So whatever it costs me to purchase the unit and get it to your door, that's what it'll cost the customer. So it's gonna kind of give back to everybody and help everybody out. And why it's still hot.
Heard that. I was talking to Kevin Little just a little bit ago. He says he's going to be snagging one off of you, and he was looking at the pricing. So I'll be sure and make sure he's. I know he's listening, but he probably just wrote down everything he needed to know. So that's Kevin.
This month will be the month to do it.
I heard that.
But yeah, to go back to that, it just depends on the atmosphere. That's the best part of the split, right? You turn on that last wind light, and you're going to the split round, or what you believe is the split round. It's a great feeling. I can't say that that's not. I do think about that. That's what I chase, is that feeling of making it to the cut. Because I say when you're trying to explain to people like, well, why it was a $50,000 race, but you didn't walk away with $50,000. It's not dirt track racing. We come each lap, we come back around together, and when you're battling through 350, 400 people, and you get down to the last 16, obviously, y'all are all pretty equal of skill, to be where you're at. So, do you take your chances and be, snub nose and say, we're just running for the flyer, or, do you? I just like to, I like to be thankful that I'm there in the first place. Thankful to be able to do it one more time. and then what everybody else agrees to, I'm pretty much ready to roll on that part.
Well, and it's always a substantial increase too. Like that round, I mean, some of the races that you've been racing lately, that split round is a difference between going home with, at times $250 or going home with $2,500.
That's
You know,
right.
and it's, I mean, and some of them get so big, like those $1 million races that they had. I want to say the split round was a difference of like tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, one round. Yeah.
Right. And don't forget, at any given point, just like all this bracket racing always works out, somebody that round before probably had a run that they lost with that would have beat every single other person that's in that split
That's
round.
right. That's right. Yep. But yeah, just being able to be there, that's the great part. Like you were saying, you don't know, you may have got a lucky round that round. It just depends on how you're racing that day. But Aaron Vale said something that I had never, thought about going into the round. He said it at the split at KilKare. He said, "We've made it this far. We shouldn't have to be paying, or we shouldn't have to be to this point and still paying on our tab. So
Right.
let's cover our tabs." And I was like, well, that's a good way to look at it. There's no reason to battle through all these people all day long, and then at the end of the day still have to stroke a check, even if it's not that much.
Right. And that brings up an interesting point. What are your feelings on, pretty much every major event out there that says 50,000 to win or whatever, it always says 50,000 to win, 10,000 to runner up. And really the best format I saw was whenever, I think it was TB again, they did that, it was supposed to be a $50,000 shootout turned into 100, but they didn't put it all on top because they doubled the car count, I believe. And they split it back. So it was like 100, then 50, then 25. And it was like reasonable. It was like divided by 2 all the way back. And I've always been more of a fan of that type of a structure. And, you were referencing dirt track racing previously. Dirt track racers, to make the feature, they usually get paid just to make the feature. So if you're starting in that race, you get, I don't know, it's something minimal, but say you get $100.
Yeah.
That doesn't really exist in, at least in bracket racing, it doesn't exist.
No.
What are your feelings on the top heavy flyers to get that big number out there?
So, those are definitely the ones that get chopped up at the split, right? Is the ones that are more top heavy. And, you still have enough there, to make it worth your while, especially most of the time it's, based on entry fee. A lot of people obviously look at that number one prize because nobody's going in there expecting to lose, right? You do look at the payback and see, which TB has great payback throughout their event. I can't remember. I think there was almost 80,000 whenever we were at the split. So, there's enough to, kick back for everybody. But I think that the way that it's structured now is about, it's expensive, right? The money's got to come from somewhere. And that's what the dirt track thing, they have so many spectators back in the fans. That's how they're paying their purses out and able to pay you if you qualify. And, we don't have that in bracket racing. We're our own spectators, right? So I actually have a guy local to me who runs he did run the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series professionally. And me and him talked about it. He's like, yeah, man, to go, run some of these races, I can't believe they still charge us to enter some of these events. I was like, oh yeah, how much they charge you? He's like $25. I was like, $25? Come on, man. I mean,
ask him what it takes to support his racing program versus yours, even with the entry fees, though.
Oh,
yeah. There's a big difference.
Yeah, that's expensive for sure.
Yeah. I got a interesting question for you that I'm sure you've thought about, at least in a small part. Future aspirations. Do you have any type of future aspirations to run like any type of NHRA categories? Like you have 2 cars obviously right now that are super comp, super gas type deal. Like anybody who goes and does that, usually they bring both cars and run each because kind of need to really to be able to do that. You have any desire to do that, or are you kind of sticking with the bracket racing deal?
I've got some things that I'm working on. I'm actually going to go and I'm going to get my super comp license this weekend, just to kind of have. I was able to go to Bowling Green and watch the divisional. I've never super comp or super gassed or anything like that in my life, but it did pique an interest. I definitely didn't like the lag of make one run today, one run tomorrow, but the atmosphere was pretty cool. So I mean, I do have that aspiration to go further, right? You always want to continue to grow and just see how far you can go, right? That's definitely something that we're gonna try is maybe not the big money bracket racing will always be I feel like the forefront, but I do want to continue to grow in other things and try some NHRA racing.
Yeah, I feel like I've done it. I've only ran Super Comp one time, but I feel like if you had two cars, the sitting around is not. I mean, it still sucks. Still a lot of sitting around. But on one hand, it's like, okay, well, at least you have some cool stuff to watch. It's kind of like if they have an Outlaw Pro Mod event at your local bracket race, you got something to watch while you're sitting around. And then you having two cars that are perfect for both of those super categories, then you would be able to you'd make two runs and then sit, not one,
I know it's going to be a completely different world, but just from the outside looking in, there was a lot of cars at Bowling Green, and I mean, I was in their cars that I've never seen before, like ever. And I'm like, why don't you guys come bracket race? And I don't know if it's just because it's so tight or, they don't like 8th Mile. I don't know what that difference is, but that's one thing I realize.
It's a different scene altogether, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just like, the Nova fans gonna get me for that one, but what I know is about divisional racing is it is definitely the epitome of having a social event in a bracket or a drag race breaks out after the fact. Okay, generally they're done around 6:30, 7 at night.
Right. Yeah, we were done at 6 and the sun was still up.
Racing no more. People are out on their cars. Barbecue grills are going. It's definitely a lot. It's relaxing, and you're racing at the same time. So that's what I know. Casey, say something.
One thing that's cool is that if you're someone who really understands what they're looking at and you really like cars and you understand the engineering aspect of how things work, if you can ever go to an event where you can really look at the comp eliminator cars.
That's what I was about to say. They had a couple of comp eliminator dragsters up there, and them things were wicked. One of them looked like a supersized junior dragster, and it was flying down through the quarter.
I think there's one car in comp eliminators, like I Love Flowers or something on the side of it. Something about going here to buy flowers. It's extremely fast, and I think it's blown even, and it's a comp car. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're definitely a neat class. I do not understand it whatsoever, but
essentially, I guess the bare bones of it is it's essentially pounds per cubic inch. You want the smallest motor possible to go as fast as possible, and it's essentially drag racing's version of Bonneville, really.
Yeah. But those guys probably don't need to come bracket racing, but the super classes for sure, and super stock and super street, all those guys. I mean, they should be packing some of these bracket races, and because at the end, if you look at it, I guess it's all different strokes for different people, but I noticed that they were running for $2,000 after running through that field of 200 cars. And you got the Wally, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, to me, if I can have the opportunity to take a load of the financial burden off of the racing operation, then that's kind of more appealing to me.
Well, and if you know how to do the contingency, now contingency only matters if you're in the finals, and it's a big difference between winning and running up. But I think you can still make like $8,000 or $10,000 if you win a national event with the contingency. Now you don't know when you're ever going to get paid. You'll get paid at some point. I mean, Dan Fletcher and Peter Biondo, I'm sure, have stuff sitting out there still from the 90s, probably waiting on stuff. But that being said, think about it. The people who you think about as some of the best bracket racers of all time, Peter Biondo, Dan Fletcher, Luke Bogacki, they're all, like, Dan Fletcher is for sure the best sportsman NHRA racer ever. I think Frank Manzo's the only, if you consider alcohol funny car sportsman, Frank Manzo's the only one above him other than John Force, So
Mhm.
Yeah, that guy's he's definitely a legend in himself. And
Yeah.
it's
It's-
cool watching him come to some of these bracket races and start dominating.
Yeah.
I race with him every weekend at Galat. It's
Really?
ridiculous. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you don't
it's
live but a
ridiculous.
couple of miles away from him, right?
Yeah, he's in 1 or 2 towns away from me. He moved down from New York a few years ago, and yeah, every time that we go to Galat for a local race, he's right there racing with all of us. So, but yeah,
But that's right there. That's pretty cool to me. You know, one of the best to ever do it, and just on a normal weekend, he's out there doing it just because he loves it. And that's how when it's all said and done, I want to be able to do that until I can't do it no more.
Yep. That guy's lived it, man. Him and Biondo both. I mean, Fletcher's now putting on his own race at Galat later this year. 220 single entry, 250 cars sold out in 8 hours. I got another hired gun running the Nova in that race. So we'll see if he can hold up to it. If he doesn't win any money, then we're gonna know something's wrong with him because everybody else wins.
Everybody else wins in it. Yeah.
You know, speaking of money, races, and my next question to you, man, there's got to be a target or a couple of targets that you have in front of you. It's either the OG, one of the big $1 million races, whatever we call it. Which one of those races would you say you want to knock down the soonest? I guarantee you're going to the OG this year. I would have to imagine that's probably your answer too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely the OG, right? So growing up, being a kid, watching and listening or seeing it in magazines and stuff, that was if I could figure out one day how to get there, that was the thought back then. And now, so that's what I'm saying about the preparation and the opportunity coming together. I never even entered the million until 4 years ago, just simply because of the funding. And now that's definitely one that's on the bucket list and that's probably the main target. I mean, the other ones definitely would be the Great American Bracket Race $500,000 and Peter's $500,000. Obviously would not bat an eye or be upset of knocking out either one of them two. But the OG just, it's the OG. There's nothing like it. That whole week is a completely different atmosphere. You can, on the $1 million day, you can feel it in the air. It's different. I don't know how to explain it.
Were you at last year's in St. Louis?
No, I was there, but I might as well not have been.
Shoot, one of them, huh? Hey,
Yeah.
but the area, I was kind of glad. Casey and I have been talking about this for a long time now, but I was glad to see the OG come back to St. Louis. It's just a nice area to race. It's a really nice facility to race at, for that matter. And you've got pretty good home court advantage there, I would have to think. You probably get a good few chances to get out to St. Louis, dude.
So I never raced at St. Louis until TB's first race out there. Because I was always, an outlaw grassroots racer. Never had anything certified or anything like that. Just strapped in and went. And they were really heavy on that stuff. Not saying that they're not now, but with those events,
they still are.
They still are.
Yeah, with those events, they've kind of catered to the bracket racers' way, and I feel like most of us are that grassroots racer. Then I started attending, and I love this facility. I think it's like a baby Bristol almost. Minus the mountains, but the track itself, that's what it reminds me of. Yeah, it's definitely, and it's hot. Every time I go there, it seems like it's smoking hot.
Always.
Yeah. All that asphalt. I know there were years at Megabucks where we actually cracked an egg to see if that was a true story that it would cook on asphalt, and guess what? It did.
Yeah.
So I can remember a lot of hot days.
That's the first place I think I met you, Zach. Was at TB's race, the first St. Louis race, where it's 110 outside, but it was 60 degrees. Zach's trailer, 60.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Yeah, it was nice.
Standing over here. He's parked right across the way. I'm standing over here as long as I can. Jeez.
And that was also when they had that. I had the blower dragster, the blower Mr. Cool, and they had that Mulligan race.
Yep.
Man, we raced till 3:00 in the morning.
I lost fifth round, and I didn't buy it back because it was like 1:00 in the morning. I'm going to bed. Forget that.
I think we quit racing at round 9.
Yeah.
We quit racing at round 9, and at 7 cars, there were still 2 people with mulligans left. And I think it was going to go 13 rounds.
Mhm.
No, we're going to bed.
They used to do that. They used to do that at I-57 back in the day. Whenever I was a little kid, I remember Dad running in those, and they're 13, 14 rounds all the time. And I mean, and I-57, I don't know how they are anymore, but they used to be real bad about if you won there, the sun was coming up every single weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I came home from I-57 with the sun coming up.
yes, I mean, there's plenty of times. I can't tell you how many times we've come home. I got some trophies over there from I-57 coming home in the early morning. And the thing is,
they recently changed ownership. Don Ellis owns it now, but they run a pretty tight program and get done in a decent hour now.
Nice.
I'll tell you what, man, as far as I think they're IHRA sanctioned now, but I'll tell you what, the one thing about I-57 is in all the years of going there racing, I grew up at I-57, like little kid. And when they still had woods over there, playing in the woods and stuff. In fact, I slipped on a trailer, busted my nose open one time when I was a little kid and had to go to the ambulance. And but anyway, so I grew up at I-57. I can tell you one thing, that's the one track that you never have an issue with hooking. And it never, I think until Donnie went IHRA, that track has never been sanctioned since the day it was built.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then so Gleason, it was NHRA sanctioned too, but I mean that's what we had around here. You know, there's my granddad, he used to do super stock, and he was big in the NHRA stuff there for a while, back in his years of chasing it around. But you know, me growing up, but nothing like that. Like you were saying, they weren't even sanctioned until a few years ago. So,
Did you ever run at Harrisburg?
I've ran there a couple of times, but not back in the day. No,
I never did. I've never ran there ever.
What was that, accelerator or Acceliquarter?
Acceliquarter.
Yeah, I heard that. Well, I heard it was an extremely nice place, but it opened right whenever I moved. Right whenever I moved from work to Colorado, and then it was closed by the time I came back.
Yeah.
But I always heard that place was really nice.
Yeah, there's not much parking there, but what parking is there is asphalt. But the surface was super nice.
Right.
It was smooth glass.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it was nice surface. My dad, of course, went there a bunch of times. Of course, pretty sure he's going to Benton this week. So he's got a new dragster he wants to try out. Old to him, but back in the stable. So he wants to try it out. So I think he's gonna be at Benton anyway. So, man, Casey, I think it's your question, dude.
Yeah, man. We've kind of covered a little bit of this, but I wanted to kind of. We have a lot of younger kids that watch this show, and I kind of wanted somebody who's in their recent memory having won a bigger race. Obviously, you don't race for a living primarily, but it is a very big part of your life. And I just wanted you to speak to kind of how do you become successful? Like, what's the mindset of being a successful racer? Do you have any sort of practice regimens? Do you have any sort of mental game that you really try to think things through that may happen during the week or something like that?
Yeah, so good question. So, you know, being a successful racer, you know, that's a wide question in itself, because don't think just because that you're not able to come and chase the big money stuff that you're not a successful racer. If you're being able to do it with your granddad or your dad or your mom or whoever's got you in the sport, you know, that's success in itself right there. I wouldn't, if I didn't big money race right now, I would still be out there every weekend, because I was successful racing before I ever got the opportunity to do it. But to answer your question on how to be competitive and successful at the big money events or at racing period, I used to be, my granddad used to tear me up for doing this, but as soon as I get off work, I'd roll my S10 out in the driveway. I'd completely suit up. He had a gravel driveway, so I took marking paint and I painted the legs on the practice tree so I could put it in the same spot every day when I got off work. And I would set it up and run 2 extension cords, one in my delay box or my practice tree box and one to the practice tree. And then I would actually crank the truck up and I would hit the tree a few times, and I'd probably hit the tree 500 times a week, and I don't hit it near like that anymore. But that kind of stuff in the beginning of me, because I had a really hard time going from foot braking to the top. I could be good for a few rounds, but then it would, just out of nowhere, and I didn't know it. That was my problem. I didn't know when I was bad. So I just, like you were saying, you race out of it, right? So I just kept on pushing towards different scenarios in my head. I would take a piece of paper and write down people like Jason Lynch, LaBouche Jr., Bogacki, and then I would, write down 10 rounds, and I had to be better than their lot for that let go, And sometimes, I get all the way down to like 003 and, not know it. So I was trying to have the least variable window that I could, and that really helped me up front. But strategies on the track, yeah, I think about, especially if I lost, like, if I'm still racing, I'll probably forget about how I lost that day. The next day I would forget about how I lost the previous day. But going into the week off of losing a round, think about that round over and over and over and over and over, and just try to rerun it in my head. Like, where did I mess up? At what point should I have bailed out? What point should I have stayed in it? What point should I have, killed it? And different things like that. And I think that's what being obsessed, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what makes you a successful racer on the track, is being obsessed through and through with the game.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I guess you've ran through so many scenarios in your head that everybody who drives a race car, people who don't understand it. But as you drive a race car more and more and more, you start looking at it. No matter how fast the car is, the race slows down for you. And there's a million thoughts go through your head. And I guess if you kind of what you're saying, if you just are constantly obsessing about it and thinking about it, you can recognize something that you've thought through and you're like, oh, I just got to do this. So it's not like a surprise anymore. You just subconsciously, what you're doing because you've made that run 500 times in your head now.
And I'm not saying that, I'm thinking about it over whatever works in front of me or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, during driving time or during that dead time of where you're just doing something, that's what I'm going through my head of that. Like my spare time, that's what I'm going through. I'm not saying I do think about it all day long, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to put the impression out there that there's nothing else more important, because there definitely is. But yeah, that's how, I go over the runs in my head and try to figure out what I did wrong. Like, for instance, I let go, I was 53 or 56 at one of the rounds at KilKare, and I knew it and I bumped it, but when I took off, I knew I was still bad. So I sprayed the crap out of it, and I told Matt Daddis, I said, I sprayed that baby until she laid over and didn't want no more, and then bailed completely out of it. But no, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have known to do that.
Yep.
Right.
So it's, figuring out those different things to do, and I shouldn't have won that round, but because of being in that situation before, of how can I get my way out of this, that's how you get that. That's how that kind of stuff falls your way.
I guess I don't have to
Well,
ask.
that's the thing.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Kate.
the most savvy drivers, that's the thing. Like, I would say in recent times, Jeff Serra, Johnny Ezel, and Nick Hastings and Scotty Richardson are the people who won. Like, look at the All-Star race, the last major race Scotty Richardson ever won. He had no business winning those last 3 rounds, but he did because he's Scotty Richardson, and he can make something look so stupid that you don't know what's going on anymore. Nick Hastings is probably the closest thing to that we'll ever see. But Jeff Serra and Johnny were the first 2 people to hold a mile, hold 7, 8, 10 numbers, 12 numbers. I've seen Jeff hold 14 before. But they get so far out there that no one knows what's going on except them. So they make stuff happen that shouldn't happen because no one knows what's going on anymore.
Yeah, you have nothing to drive off of.
Exactly.
Right. Somehow they still do it, is what's odd about that. We've got nothing in the opposite lane, but dude, they've got it all. They've got every single card. and hopefully you just make a mess up somehow. And 90% of the time, if you're late on the tree, that ain't gonna happen. So
I'm, not saying that I do this every time that I pull up to those specific names, but if I know somebody's driving some certain way, I think a lot of people get intimidated by it, and maybe they're not confident enough in their skill level of being able to pull it off. But throwing something at them that they can't read, because typically, and I only know this because I do it sometimes, but typically, whenever you package race or just try to hold it dead on, like we were saying earlier, and you give that window, they know the picture. You know what's going on beside you. If you're both holding 300s and you're pretty close to the dial in and half track are still neck and neck, well, something's got to give. Either your car's going down or something. Both of y'all getting ready to do something. Same way holding 6 or 7 or 8. He's got to kind of play that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Oh, got it, man. So what's this year ain't even over, but what's next year look like? I wonder how packed your schedule is already.
So I actually don't even start looking at it until the end of October. Yeah, just let everybody release everything, because you don't want to start stacking and then something else pop up.
Yeah.
So I like to try to wait to the end of the racing season. Like right now, I like to start shifting gears towards PRI.
Mm-hmm.
We already got our booth for there.
Mm-hmm.
Start making preparations for it and how we can show Mr. Cool off the best way that we can, and making meetings with trailer manufacturers and other partners that might be holding Mr. Cool product and that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. It makes sense what you said too. Instead of loading everything up so early, things like what Brian Whitworth's saying over here on the Facebook side of things, the US 60 next week has the Bluegrass Big Bucks race. Looks like it's 10 grand to win, 2-day event. So I mean, if you had something scheduled, you'd be missing out on that next weekend. So yeah.
I think that'll be a great race. That facility looks awesome. I hope I can make it up there.
Speaking of that facility, did they repave everything?
Everything. Yeah, the way I understand it, they took everything out and redone it all.
I also heard Gateway repaved everything. Casey, did you hear that?
Yeah, they repaved it. Yeah, a bunch.
Yep.
Yeah, Dad was there last weekend. Everything went well. So I know they had a quick 16. So if anything wasn't going to work, it would have not worked by now.
So Gateway's fresh too, guys. By the way. So
when they do that? Did they do that after the Twin 50s? I guess
it had to have been, and I think it was fairly recent. I'm wondering if they did it because that the NHRA is coming in there here next couple. I mean,
that's true. Yeah, they got the national.
The NHRA is coming, so
yeah, it's this month.
Yeah, and something about the new technology they were using too, some type of smoothing or milling or something. My dad was talking about.
All right, I say this month. It's
like
the next month,
right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So smooth surface.
Cool, man. Well, as always, man, we appreciate you spending an hour of your time with us and getting some information out here to the fans and everything. But I want to give you the opportunity to thank whoever you got to thank. I know, obviously, Mr. Cool is a huge part of a lot of not just your racing operation, but you work for him as well. So,
yeah. So that first off, you got to thank God. He can't. None of us will be able to do any of this without him. And that's one thing I love about Mr. Cool is every time that I call him with good news, or I FaceTime him a lot, the owner, and first thing he says is praise God. So that speaks volumes of that family. They are big. They're over 250 employees, and they do sell a lot of product all over the U.S. But that family atmosphere, you couldn't ask for better people, man. But yeah, I've got other people to thank. My granddad and my uncle, of course. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. All of our guys and that we have at Southern Termite and Pest Control, that's our family company. I'm a 5th generation exterminator, so that's what I do day in and day out. My granddad started, his great granddad started years ago, but my granddad went off and started his own 24 years ago. Him and my uncle did, and that's what we do day in and day out. But yeah, so sponsors that help us keep things rolling. Cargo Mate, man, they're a Mr. Cool dealer also. They're putting Mr. Cool products in their brand new trailers. They got on board and helped supply us with 2 new trailers that we can run up and down the road. Oakley Motorsports. I called Jay as soon as I left TB's racing KilKare. I was like, hey man, I gotta need you to pull something else out for me because we got another one hurt. So yeah, he got the parts and got our heads built, and we're getting ready to start putting it back together when we hop off of here. Blake and Ryan and Austin and Edmund down at RBZ, getting us all our wheels that we need. Hoosier Tire, we got them on board this year. The 1350 is a awesome drag racing tire on a dragster. The 1450 I heard is even smoother, but I don't need it for my application because 470s, 480s. I feel like the 1350 is a better fit. Also got the Hoosier radio on the Cavalier, and I think it varied like 2 thou to 60 at KilKare. It was awesome. But a Bruzy for their converters. We got to convert their converter and everything that we do. Competitive suspension. Dave Conley, he takes care of us on our shocks. That he's a wizard, man. He can get everything that you need dialed in for your car. Get them performance, Jamie and Trevor. Their carbs are nasty. I can call Trevor and tell him what's going on. I didn't have a carb problem, but I had fuel coming out from my carburetor going on the windshield. And he's like, yeah, man, just do this and this, and it'll fix it. And he had me right back up and going. Tommy Cunningham, he actually lives about 10 minutes from me. He's the owner of Stroud Safety. He keeps our belts and stuff and all of our safety gear ready and up and going. Yeah, and Dylan Thompson, he owns Chase Motorsports trailer and coach sales, selling toter homes and trailers. He does a lot of the late model stuff and dirt car setups, but he has the rigs that us drag racers use too. So go check him out. He's located here in Paducah as well. And then of course our motorsports company, EDR Motorsports. So yeah, that's the end and go for EDR Motorsports is to kind of be like a Hendrix race cars kind of thing of having a multitude of drivers and different facets of motorsports. So
pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
And
I forgot one person.
You got it.
Hey, go ahead.
Justin Melton at M&M Race Cars. As a kid, I always told him that I wanted to, one day I was going to have one of his cars. And because they can literally, they've driven race cars down the 4-lane to Gleason. That's how close their race car shop is. And so, whenever I started being able to purchase cars from them, they've done nothing but help me out. And anytime I give Justin a call, he's there ready to go.
And I don't know if you do this as part as EDR Motorsports or anything, but I saw the Cavalier at PRI, and if you need someone to wire a car, this guy's your man too.
Yeah, I have wired a few cars on the side. I appreciate that. I do. I'm very picky about the wiring and stuff, but yeah. Hunter Patton still got miles on me on my wiring, but that guy's something else when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do try to take pride in it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, we appreciate you sitting down with us for all this time, man, and talking to us a little bit. I hope it's not till PRI again that I get to talk to you. I'm going to have to talk to you actually about some tire choices for a top sportsman car, and then I'm debating going to a radial on my Nova. Actually, everybody tells me I'm nuts, but I can't ever leave anything alone. We talked about that before the show.
Yeah. The radials are something else, man. And I've got like local heroes, growing up, and great friends to this day. I've got Charlie Lockhart and Lucas Walker, Wesley Lockhart. They're all within driving. They're all 10 miles from me, but they all kind of got me to start trying the Hoosier stuff, and I love it, man. It's awesome. Especially Lucas talked me into the Hoosier radial on the Cavalier, and man, that thing is awesome. You won't regret it.
Done. No, man. Yeah, like Casey said, thanks for joining in and to the GBR community. He said he had a good deal going on the Mr. Cool units. If you need anything, I've seen a few comments in the chat. Just hit us up. We'll get you in contact with Zach one way or the other. So, but man, on behalf of GBR, thanks for coming in. And to our GBR followers, we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Take it easy.
Yep. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir.